Greetings to all. This video is about the drama Buried Child by Sam Shepard, an overview. Starting from the brief biography of Sam Shepard, Sam Shepard was born in rural Illinois to a farmer and a teacher. He worked on a ranch in his youth before moving to New York in 1962, where he first lived with Charlie Mingus Jr., son of the great jazz bassist. Throughout the 1960s and early 1970s, Shepard was involved in both the theatre and in folk music, winning many independent theatre awards and collaborating with such stars as Bob Dylan and Patti Smith, with whom he was romantically involved at the time. Shepard was also a regular at the Chelsea Hotel, which was a hotbed for music, poetry, and theatre. In the mid 1970s, some of his most famous plays were produced in San Francisco, including True West, Curse of the Starving Class, and Buried Child. Buried Child garnered Shepard mainstream attention and won the prize for drama in 1978. Around this time, Shepard began his career as a film actor. He has written over 40 plays and has acted in well over 50 film and television shows, even earning an Academy Award nomination in 1983. Shepard is also an author, screenwriter, and director of theatre and film. Moving on to historical context of Buried Child, in the mid 1970s, an oil crisis and a stock market crash led to an economic recession, including incredibly high rates of inflation and unemployment in the United States. Buried Child, which premiered in 1978, portrays a middle American agriculture family affected by this period of financial stagnation, as evidenced by their less than prosperous farm. More broadly, the family and its thwarted dreams can more generally be seen as represented an American that, in the late 1970s, had become worried about its future as a moral and economic leader of the world.
So, if we had a look into other books related to Buried Child, Eugene O'Neill's Long Day's Journey into Night is considered to be one of the quintessential American family drama, and it was a major early influence on Shepard's work. Although it too centers on a dysfunctional family, where Shepard says that his goal was to destroy the idea of the American family drama. So, in addition, Buried Child is a part of Shepard's family trilogy, where it also includes Curse of the Starving Class and True West. Each of these plays explore the themes of family and the American dream. And also, if we had a look into the 1970s economic slowdown, the house itself is run down and it reflects the signs of poverty of the American farms during that time. And nothing has been planted in those fields as well.
Disappointment and disillusionment. The character of Ansel, he is the son Haley, idolizes as an all-American hero despite his death due to suspicious circumstances in a motel room. Haley fantasizes about his potential to be a hero, an all-American star basketball player, reflecting the American hope in the youth. Yet, his death and subsequent denouncement reflects the disappointment and disillusionment which many people experienced when they realized the actuality of the American circumstance. The two sons, Tilden and Bradley, both failed their parents' expectation. Both are expected to take over the farm or at least take care of the parents in their old age, thus fulfilling the American mythology of the next generation taking over from the last. However, both sons are handicapped, Tilden emotionally and Bradley physically. They are unable to care for their parents and thus unable to carry out the American dream. Dodge felt the failure of the farm and the family as a whole. He had failed to make the farm successful. He had not even planted any type of crop for over 30 years. He felt he had not lived up to what a typical American family's dream should have been. The play often shows the father as generally sitting around doing very little, steeped in a major depression. The character of Shelley is used to show the audience what the ideal family should be. A disgust with what she expects and what is actually reality helps to show the audience what the American dream should be. Breakdown of traditional family structures and values. Dodge, the ineffectual patriarch, is meant to be the breadwinner and ethical guardian of the family. Instead, he takes on the role of a sardonic alcoholic who is bullied by his wife and children and thus disempowered through their actions. His character reflects patriarchs in America who have failed to create the family environments idolized in the American dream. The act of incest and the resultant murder are indicative of a breakdown in the ethical rigidity which characterizes the typical American family. The character of Father Dew is adulterous and unauthoritative, fails to fulfill the role of moral guardian assigned to him by society, thus reflecting the breakdown of morality and ethics within America.
Buried child character analysis. Dodge, a farmer now in his 70s, Dodge murdered the child that his wife Hallie had with his son Tilden. Hallie, Dodge's wife, who is in her 60s, she attempts to cover up the fact she had a baby with her eldest son Tilden. Tilden, a man in his 40s, Tilden is the eldest son of Dodge and Hallie. He had sex with his mother Hallie, and that baby was killed by Dodge. Bradley, the other son of Dodge and Hallie, and about 5 years younger than Tilden. Vince, a young man in his early 20s, and he is a son of Tilden's by an unknown mother. Vince is a key example of the powerful and magnetic family bond. Shelley, Vince's girlfriend, who is a young woman in her early 20s. Father Davis, a Protestant minister in his 60s. In Act 1, Davis appeared as gently, but when the Act 3 he is drunk and ineffectual by the affair with Hallie. Act 1. Nestled within a fertile plot of land in Illinois, there lies an old farmhouse where the characters Dodge in his 70s and Haley in her 60s, an old married couple, are introduced. The scene begins with the couple having a conversation with one another, discussing events of their past. Haley is not visible in the scene as she is yelling from upstairs while Dodge is sitting on the basement sofa, sneaks his drinks which is hidden. It is evident that he is an alcoholic. They talk about their beloved son Ansel, who was murdered years earlier by his wife on their wedding night. They also talk about another son, Bradley, an ampute who comes to give a haircut to Dodge forcefully while he sleeps. In order to ward off the haircut, Dodge is wearing a baseball cap. Haley leaves for church dressed in black and tells the older son Tilden to look after Dodge. Tilden then enters the scene with an armful of corn, which he claims grew in the field outside. Dodge states that nothing has grown in the field since the Dust Bowl and accuses Tilden of stealing from a neighbor. Dodge and Tilden then begins to discuss Tilden's past. They speak of how he got into trouble in New Mexico and had to leave home after failing to start a new life there. Tilden is mentally unstable as he sits shucking corn into a bucket. When Dodge falls asleep at the end of their conversation, Tilden covers him with the corn husk, creating a blanket before he goes outside into the rain. Bradley enters the room shortly and shaves Dodge's head while he sleeps.
Act 2, the scene begins with the introduction of Vince and Shelley. Vince was headed to meet his father, Tilden, in New Mexico, but has decided to stop over at his grandparents' house. On the way there, Shelley is just tagging along for the ride. Vince is surprised when he enters the house as Dodge does not recognize him at all. Shelley then believes they have entered the wrong house and tries to convince Vince to leave, but he does not budge. Tilden then enters the room with a bundle of carrot and is uninterested in Shelley and Vince. Vince then gets Tilden's attention, but Tilden also does not recognize Vince. Vince tries different method to convince Tilden and Dodge of his identity. Shelley talks to Tilden and asks him questions about Vince. Tilden goes on saying that he does not recognize Vince, but he does look familiar. Tilden also talks about the son he had a long time ago with his mother, Haley, but Dodge had killed the baby and buried him in the backyard. Bradley then enters the scene and begins to harass Shelley by sticking his hand in her mouth. He then takes a fur coat and places it over Dodge and blacks out.
The scene begins with Dutch presuming that Vince has run away and left Shelley. He also tells Shelley not to fear Bradley as he only has one leg. After some time, Hallie enters the house with Father Davis, with whom the audience later learns she is having an affair. Hallie sees Dutch lying on the ground and Bradley lying shamelessly on the sofa and smiles in embarrassment to Father Davis. She then starts a yelling match with Dutch and Bradley, and they exchange several words until Shelley intervenes. In frustration, Shelley grabs Bradley's wooden leg and waves off the rest of the family, expressing her anger with them in Vince. Father Davis tries to calm Shelley down and places the wooden leg onto the table. Soon after, Vince returns drunk and hurls beer bottle at the house. He then climbs through the door's netting and states that he has to stay at the farmhouse with his family. Hallie and Dutch then recognize Vince and Dutch hands him the ownership of the house and land. With the land now his, Vince decides to stay at the house while Shelley tries to convince him to leave.
Thus, the conclusion says, as part of the family trilogy of Sam Shepard, Buried Child, has been understood in that the corruption of the nuclear family has been identified as the theme of the play, and the guilt and the secret of this American family is the buried child, who is regarded as the incestuous relationship between Hallie and Tilden. Thus, the presentation. Thank you.